$36 billion. Gone in 48 hours. Not stolen by a foreign government. Not wiped out by a natural disaster. Erased by a single man sitting at a desk in New York City, placing bets so large that when they went wrong, they took entire banks down with him. His name is Bill H. Hwang. Born in South Korea, raised in Las Vegas, trained at one of the most famous hedge funds on Wall Street. By 2021, he had quietly built one of the largest personal fortunes in the history of American finance, and almost nobody outside of a small circle of banks had any idea it existed. H. Hwang ran a firm called Archegos Capital Management. The word Archegos comes from Greek. It means a leader, a pioneer, a forerunner. The name turned out to be accurate in the worst possible way, because what Bill H. Hwang pioneered was a method of taking on risks so extreme, so hidden, and so catastrophically leveraged that, when it finally collapsed, it became a case study in how money dies. To understand what happened, you need to understand one financial instrument, the total return swap. Imagine you want to bet that a stock is going to go up. Normally, you would buy the stock. You hand over your money, you own the shares, and your name shows up on a public record. Regulators can see you. Other investors can see you. The position is disclosed. But H. Hwang didn't do it that way. Instead, he went to a bank and made a private agreement. He said, "I want exposure to this stock. You buy it. I'll pay you a fee. If the stock goes up, you pay me the profit. If it goes down, I pay you the loss. The bank holds the shares in its own name. My name appears nowhere." That instrument is called a total return swap. It is not illegal. Banks do these deals all the time. But what H. Hwang allegedly did with them was extraordinary. He went to multiple banks simultaneously: Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse, Nomura, Deutsche Bank, UBS, and made the same type of agreement with each one. Each bank thought it was one of several counterparties. None of them had the full picture. And because H. Hwang's name was never on the shares, no public disclosure was ever required. Through this network of hidden swaps, H. Hwang allegedly built positions worth somewhere between $80 and $100 billion. His own actual capital, the real money he put in, was estimated at around $20 billion. The rest was borrowed, multiplied, leveraged. He was betting with roughly $5 for every $1 he actually had. On a single directional bet, stocks go up. The stocks he concentrated in were names like Viacom CBS, Discovery, GSX Techedu, and Baidu. These were not the biggest, most liquid names in the market. They were mid-sized companies. And H. Hwang's positions in some of them, investigators would later allege, represented enormous fractions of the entire float, all shares available for trading. Allegedly, his bets on some companies represented more than 50% of the shares that actually existed in the market. He was, in the government's telling, the market. And then something small went wrong. In late March of 2021, Viacom CBS announced a stock offering. When a company announces it's issuing new shares, the existing share price tends to drop. Viacom CBS stock fell. For a position as large as H. Hwang's, a single percentage point drop meant hundreds of millions of dollars in losses. His banks called. They needed more collateral, more cash posted against the loans. This is called a margin call. H. Hwang allegedly could not cover it. On Friday, March 26, 2021, the banks began to figure out what was happening. They got on calls with each other. Some banks, Goldman and Morgan Stanley, allegedly acting faster than the rest, began quietly selling H. Hwang's positions into the market. They needed to get out before everyone else did. What followed was one of the most violent block sale sequences in modern market history. In a single day, approximately $30 billion worth of shares were dumped onto the market. Viacom CBS dropped 27%. Discovery fell 17%. The stocks Hwang had bet everything on were in freefall. And because the other banks, Credit Suisse and Nomura most prominently, were slower to act, they were left holding positions that kept falling. By the time the dust settled 48 hours later, Bill Hwang had lost an estimated $36 billion. Credit Suisse lost approximately $5.5 billion. Nomura lost nearly $3 billion. Other banks absorbed smaller but still punishing losses. Together, the counterparties lost over $10 billion on positions they hadn't fully understood they were holding, until it was too late. Hwang himself lost nearly everything, a fortune that had grown in near-total secrecy, compounding silently behind a wall of financial instruments no outsider could easily see, was gone before the following Monday's opening bell. The legal consequences moved more slowly than the markets. The Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission opened investigations. In April of 2022, Hwang and his chief financial officer, Patrick Halligan, were indicted on federal charges including racketeering, securities fraud, and wire fraud. Prosecutors alleged that Hwang had not only used swaps to hide his positions, but had actively traded to manipulate stock prices upward, feeding his own books while deceiving the banks that were his counterparties. In July of 2024, after a trial in federal court in Manhattan, Bill Hwang was convicted on 11 of the 11 counts he faced. Patrick Halligan was also convicted. Hwang faced a maximum sentence of over 100 years, though sentencing guidelines suggested something far less. As of the time of this script, sentencing proceedings were ongoing. What the Archegos collapse revealed was not a rogue actor operating in total darkness. It revealed something more uncomfortable: a system of financial instruments that allowed enormous, concentrated, and deeply dangerous positions to be built in plain sight of sophisticated institutions that simply did not ask enough questions. Every bank that dealt with Hwang knew he was using swaps. Every bank collected fees. Every bank had risk departments. And yet not one of them had the complete picture, because each one only saw its own piece. The lesson that Archegos teaches is not complicated. It is ancient, really. It is this: leverage hides the true size of a bet until the bet goes wrong. When you borrow to multiply your exposure, when $5 of risk rides on every $1 you actually own, you do not need to be wrong by very much. You only need to be wrong once, at the wrong moment, for the mathematics to become irreversible. $36 billion did not disappear because Bill Hwang made a bad prediction about a stock. It disappeared because the structure underneath the prediction could not survive even a modest move against it. The fortune was never as solid as it appeared. It was always, in some fundamental sense, borrowed. And borrowed fortunes, as history keeps demonstrating, have a way of returning to where they came from faster than anyone expects, and with nothing left behind.